In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I went from being a broke-ass college student to working for a pro athlete and UFC superstar. So hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. So originally, I started off by making a podcast called The Ronan Bell Show, and it's super bad. And it's really like cringy to look back on because it's just so bad compared to what I make now. Like obviously now I have a podcast I do with my client and his friend, and we get like 10,000 views an episode, which I literally got like 10 views on every single one of my podcasts. Some I have 0 views. Like, I don't know how it's possible. Like, my mom didn't even watch it, but yeah. So originally I started off in 2021 by making podcasts, and I would interview people from some of my college professors to just people on sports teams to literally anyone that would have a conversation with me and sit down and like do a podcast. And guys, this was like way before becoming a content creator was cool. In 2025, super cool to be a content creator and be an influencer. But when you were trying to do that in like COVID era, everyone made fun of you. And that's okay. But yeah, I basically started off doing a podcast for a whole year. I released like 60 episodes. Sometimes I would do like 2 a week. And eventually I got to the point like a year later where I burnt out and I didn't want to do a podcast anymore. But what that podcast showed me was how to be a content creator. I just knew that that was something that I wanted to pursue, but different, if that makes sense. So before I thought I just wanted to be a podcaster, but I got bored of like the editing and the mundane thing of actually doing the podcast. So then I wanted to switch and change gears into something else. So then I started making really super overly edited hype videos for my friends that played football, and one of them did MMA. And then I started doing literally any single gig that I could get to just basically hold a camera out in front of someone, talk about their business, talk about literally whatever it was. I would try and just use my camera and then go home and edit. And I used to spend like 8 hours editing these videos, and they were also super cringe and they were not good. But it taught me a lot of basics on editing and how to do the really cool flashy effects, even though I'm not really about it anymore. But it was definitely a good learning experience. And yeah, and then as I was doing that, I was a full-time college student. I also had a customer support job that was for a very, 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 very large company that we probably use. I technically can't say the name, I guess, but we all use their phones. But basically, I was working 3 jobs. 1 was being a full-time student. 2, doing my videography, just trying to get better at it. And then 3, I was doing a customer support job to buy my camera equipment and like start working up a portfolio and starting to basically save money to do this company. In January of 2022, halfway through my junior year, I get a call from one of my old podcast guests who basically was a professional videographer. He worked for Ben Askren. He did stuff for his boxing match against Jake Paul. And he worked for this apparel company called Scrap Life, which is a wrestling apparel brand. And he was like, dude, I need help. Like with my company, would you want to be like my assistant and I'll teach you some things and I'll pay you? And I was like, yes. So I started doing that as well as school, as well as customer support. I didn't do like my own videography company because I was just doing stuff with him, but I was basically making all of Scrap Life's social content for the most part, and then going on these trips and, you know, how just basically learning how to run the business of a production company and what it took. So I learned a lot in a span of like 6 months from John, who taught me a lot about, like, he taught me new techniques. He taught me how to use my camera better. He taught me a bunch of different things, and I'm super grateful for that. I would literally work every single day to make my videos better. Every single day I'd make a video. And then it got to be like that summer. So I was working for him. I was on summer break, but then I also got into this trend of like going to the gym, and we made videos for social media, but they weren't for social media, if that makes sense. Like they were cool, but they weren't converting. So my idea was basically thinking about how can how can I get better at social media? So what I would do is I would film my workouts at the gym, and they were super duper cringy. Like so bad. But it taught me like what did well, what didn't do well. Like what can I do in my video to make it do better? What can I, like, how can I adjust the angles of my camera? What on social media actually attracts viewers? How to write a hook. I've never even done that before. Like when we were making these montage videos, they were just cool. They didn't convert so much. They were just cool. And that's okay. I mean, they're good for other things, but I was like, I need to learn how to do social media. So I posted every day for like probably 3 months, just figuring out what worked, what didn't. And on my own social, yeah, I was still doing stuff for John. And then when school was like about to start, I got a text message from one of the athletes at Scrap Life named Bo Nickel. And if you guys don't know who Bo is, he is a 3-time NCAA Division I national wrestling champion, considered one of the best ever in collegiate wrestling. Now he's a pro UFC fighter. So if you haven't figured it out by now, that's who I work for. But he shot me a text while I was working for Scrap Life, while I was doing my own social media, and then while I was doing, right before I was about to start school. And he basically said, hey, I was just trying to see if you'd be interested in, being my social media manager and doing some stuff for my social. Like, what would you think about that? And I was like, yeah, no, I'll take a meeting. And yeah, so I took the meeting with him. It went super well. And then eventually we came up with like how I was going to do it and balance it with school. And then eventually, like, how would I balance it with Scrap Life stuff? And we came to a deal, and I've literally been working with Bo ever since. So that was kind of how I started from being a boring ass college kid to working for a professional athlete. But there was a lot that happened in between there. I've made thousands and thousands and thousands of videos. Some of them were seen by no one. Some of them were seen by a lot of people. But the moral of the story is you just have to keep working. When I started my podcast, I thought I was going to be a podcast, but it led into this other opportunity that's awesome and great and is a dream job. The moral of the story is something that you start with might not be what you end with. Like I said, I started doing a podcast. I ended up working for a pro athlete. I didn't think that would ever happen, but it did. And there's a Thomas Jefferson quote that I love, and it's, I don't believe in luck, but the harder I work, the luckier I get. Just keep working. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be next month. It might not be the next 6 months, but eventually you're going to get better. You're going to get the opportunity that you want, and you'll be able to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. But guys, that's pretty much it. If you want to see how I became a full-time content creator, making content for someone else, join my free school community. The link is in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe, and peace.